Hello everyone, my name is Trevor, I go by TheMrTrails, and welcome to the channel. Frost Escalation is going to be launching tomorrow in Dauntless, but since we already checked out the Frost Escalation in the experimental build for it, I figured today we will be covering a couple of the other changes that are going to be coming to 1.5.3. Today's video, we are going to be taking a look at some of the upcoming cells and armor changes that are accompanying the Frost Escalation release. And later on, we will be taking a look at the Hunt Pass. For the most part, all these changes aren't really going to be shifting anything in the meta besides maybe a couple of them, but there are definitely some nice quality of life changes coming in 1.5.3. Let us begin with the cell changes, and we've got 5 cells that are receiving a buff. Perhaps the one that is the most interesting is the Adrenaline cell. Adrenaline used to be decent cell back in the day, and it might experience a return to niche relevance here. The damage increase from Adrenaline at +6 is being increased from 1.8% to 3% per 10 stamina missing. This is for a maximum of 33% when you have the +10 stamina bonus from the Slayer's Path and have 0 current stamina. And the maximum will be 16.5% at +3, as it is being increased from 0.9% to 1.5% for every 10 stamina at +3. This then becomes an interesting alternative technique cell option in certain builds. I think the most notable of these builds being chain blades using serrated blades, as well as using an axe and a warpike, as these are the most prevalent times when you have close to 0 stamina. The next cell being changed is Strategist, and this is actually an unfortunate one, at least when it comes to meta play. Using Strategist will no longer reduce your maximum HP, and the shields are getting a slight buff of 25 additional shields per level. The one case in recent times where Strategist was somewhat useful was during the Embermain trials in the crit pot era. You have a forced defensive slot on both Boreas and Pangar weapons, and it was used to reduce your maximum HP to guarantee that you'd be one hit killed from the Cursed Lightning modifier to synergize with Tragic Echo. This wasn't the case of the top run, and this being forced to have a defensive slot on a weapon will actually no longer happen once Frost Escalation is released. But it still is an interesting change, and as far as the shield buffs go, going from 150 to 175 isn't very spectacular, but Strategist will at least not reduce the damage given by Tenacious, so it's better in quotes for Tenacious builds. Next up, we've got Mender and Engineer, and these two cells are going to be receiving the same change. Both of these cells will no longer reduce the amount of healing that you get from your flask. And similarly, the final cell receiving a change, Sprinter, will no longer reduce your maximum stamina. All of these changes, again, don't really mean anything when it comes to the metagame, but they do increase the overall usefulness of the cells by having no built-in costs to their benefits, mostly for casual play. And now for the armor changes that are going to be coming, and the immunity to effect perks, meaning Warmth, Shell Shock Resist, Fireproof, Bloodless, and Insulated are being removed from armor entirely. They are going to be replaced by some more useful perks. We'll start with those that aren't super important, going up to the ones that are somewhat cool. The Volcanic Helm from Charog is having its Fireproof replaced with Sturdy, and the Fiery Gauntlets from Embermain is having its Fireproof replaced with Endurance. Now, if you ask me, Fireproof is the only seriously used of the 5 immunity cells, but these changes don't really make any builds you would have with Fireproof as a newer player change that drastically. The Shrike Down Greaves, or the Shrike Boots, is having Bloodless replaced with Grace. This change is going to make farming builds a touch more accessible for those who aren't well into the endgame. And I'll have to check, but it does seem like you might be able to get an extra cell into your perk economy through this change. Up next, we've got the Quill Spike Boots from Quillshot, and that will be having the Shell Shock Resist replaced with Barbed. There was one time I could recall that Barbed was used, and that was using the Quillshot gloves in a no predator strat to have that extra technique cell. This same situation might become available on the Quill Spike Boots now, but this is pretty much going to be outclassed by going with Crit from Thrax's Boots instead. Now for some more interesting armor changes, which sadly don't seem like they're going to affect the Trials meta, but will be a bit of a positive for casual play. The Scrave Wing Gloves from Scrave will now have the Iceborne perk instead of Warmth. This is big news for casual play because it means that you'll be able to get full Iceborne without needing to have a +3 cell for it. The downside here, as well as for most of these other changes, is that none of the cell slots on the armor pieces are going to be changing. So the Scrave Wing Gloves are going to have the mobility slot still, which means its uses are going to be more limited for both meta and casual play. Next up, we we've got the Gnasher Cap, and that's having Bloodless replaced with Tenacious. This will be the only armor piece that Tenacious will be available on as a built-in perk. The downside being that you'll still have the defensive cell slot on the helmet, which means it won't be very much used in the DPS versions of the Tenacious builds. The Eye of the Swarm from Karabakh is going to have its Shell Shock Resist replaced with Wild Frenzy. Again, with the same issue being that a mobility cell slot is what you have on the helmet, meaning it will be less useful in both trials and casual play. But this is big news, since this is the first time that Wild Frenzy is going to be available on an armor piece. And the Lightning Gloves from Stormclaw are having the Insulated replaced with Catalyst, with having the exact same issue as the Karabakh helmet having that mobility slot. But this means that for mid-game players, they'll have a way to get some Catalyst into their build without having to have maxed out cells for it. For our last two armor pieces being changed, these are going to be the pretty significant changes for casual play. The Shocking Stride from Nezaga is having the Insulated being replaced with Energized. This will be significant for sword builds that are using lifesteal like Parasitic or Iceborne, since the armor is still going to have the defense slot. And the Feet of Ice from Pangar are going to have their Warmth replaced with Overpower. This is going to be a major benefit for early game builds, as Overpower is arguably the best cell in the game, and being able to get it on an armor piece as early as unlocking Pangar is a pretty significant change. And again, this isn't really a change that is going to affect the trial scene whatsoever, but we are definitely going to be seeing the Feet of Ice in a lot more Parasitic and Iceborne builds. So those are all of the cell and armor changes that are going to be coming to Dauntless 1.5.3. Also coming to Dauntless 1.5.3 is going to be the Realm of Ice Hunt Pass, and I'm going to do this part on live commentary. Alright guys, so here we go. We've got the Realm of Ice Hunt Pass for you, which is coming out in 1.5.3. We've got the Polar Aurora Helm Transmog, the Absolute 0 Point Body Armor, the Arctic Conditions Gauntlets, and the Crashing Temperatures Boots coming at you in the first level of this pass. Now you will notice the clipping here when your weapons are sheathed, but otherwise during combat this will be flapping around and won't look all too bad when you're actually in the motions of the game. Next up, we've got the Frostform Claymore, the Sword Transmog. Didn't mean Claymore, I meant Claymore. Strike like a blizzard, and that looks like what you would be doing with this sword. Next up here, we've got the Skylights emote. So you definitely want to use this emote in like darker areas if you've got your shadows on, because it's not very visible when you're like looking out into the lighter areas. So definitely something you'll want to reserve for darker areas of the game. Next up, we've got the Lantern Transmog here, the Winter's Sunlight, and this is basically the things that we are going to be collecting for our daily Hunt Pass experience things. And that's basically just going to be put in the form of a lantern here. So really nice, can certainly accompany some of those bluer tone builds. All right, and next up here, we've got the Frostform Crush Cur, the Hammer Transmog, and again, definitely the whole theme of this Hunt Pass, the stuff that it fits with, you'll want to be running like a blue tinted build, such as with this die, the Borealis die, and then you throw on one of these weapons, you're looking pretty set. Next up here, we've got the Warpike, the Frostform Gun Spare, and all the weapons so far looking pretty good, I must say. All right, so we have a standalone body armor transmog here. We've got the Heavy Drifts, looking kind of like an overcoat with like some quill shot like pauldrons, but not like actually spiked outward. All right, and then we've got the Aether Strikers Transmog here, the Frostform Smakrin. And again, these are really slim, straying away from what Frostfall gave us, the thickest, meatiest Striker Transmog we've ever seen. All right, and here we've got the Chainblade Transmog, the Frostform Bladenin. And again, got a nice blue and little purplish tint look going on. And then we've got a flare for the Hunt Pass. It's called the Polaris, and it is, you know, a Aurora Borealis inspired type look to it. All right, next up here, we've got an emote, Break Free. You are frozen in ice. Pretty fun, pretty goofy emote here. All right, and next up we've got the Frostform Hadecoal, the Axe Transmog. Looking pretty nice. I do like running myself some blue outfits every now and then, so these weapon transmogs are actually going to fit in really good with a lot of those. We've got the Banner Plant here, the Solar Wind. Summon some Northern Lights instantaneously. Next up, we've got the Frostform Sigunin, the Repeaters Transmogs. Looking pretty good. These are Repeater Transmog I might consider using. Don't think it's my favorite of the Repeater Transmogs from Hunt Passes, but not a bad addition, must say. Next up here, we've got on the free track a rumor for the Isgrith Hamar. And this is, if you were thinking, from the Frost Skarn. So we are getting some Frost Skarn related items in this Hunt Pass. All right, and next up here we've got another emote, the Booster Chair. Let's actually see this in game real quick. A lot of the emotes have been pretty nice, pretty goofy. You know, it'd be interesting if people could stand on these chairs, as if you can recall from the last Hunt Pass, we have the bucket ladder that you can build because you can actually stand on the fishing buckets in front of the people. All right, next up here, we've got the Impact Winter Arrival emote. Come down an icicle, bust yourself out. All right, and you've probably seen me wearing this in some of these things here. As you can see right now, we've got the Isgrith Gelhium. I guess we can't see it when I actually click on it. It looks pretty good. This was like our initial indicator, our initial leak that the partners were given that Frost Skarn was becoming a thing as they unveiled this helmet. So very nice looking. And then our final things of the Hunt Pass here, we've got the Paladin of Vilmark character title. And we've got the Paladin Spirit, Paladin Stand, Paladin's Strength, and Paladin's Soul for the final tier of the cosmetics. Again, a little bit of clipping issues when weapons are sheathed. These might be getting some type of an update after some of the feedback from the partner test. Now this is another chunkier armor set, something I myself personally probably won't end up using, but something you guys might enjoy, particularly if you're a fan of the, you know, the chunky Trials champion armor and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be it for the Hunt Pass coverage here. If you are buying the Hunt Pass this season, be sure to consider using code TheMrTrails at checkout, as well as if there's anything else in the shop that you are looking at buying. And if you guys don't want to use my code specifically, just use somebody's code so that you are supporting one of your favorite Dauntless creators. And that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like. And if you enjoy Dauntless content and are not yet subscribed already, consider subscribing to the channel. Here I post Dauntless content every week. And to keep up with my content in the best way possible, join the Discord server in the description. I manually make a post in there whenever I start up a hangout or when I make a new upload. And be sure to follow my Twitch, where tomorrow we will be doing our hangout and grinding Frost Escalation. But I've been Trevor, I go by TheMrTrails, and I'll catch you guys next time.